Hey everyone, Ramesh here. In this video we are going to discuss three-tier or three-layer architecture and how three-layer architecture is related to MVC pattern and how to use three-layer architecture in our Spring MVC web application with an example. Okay, let us take a look at three-tier or three-layer architecture. So look at here, we have three layers: presentation layer, business logic layer, and data access layer. Three-layer architecture is not specific to Spring MVC web application, but you can use three-layer architecture in your servlet JSP projects. For example, at a presentation layer, you can use servlets, and business logic layer, you can keep all your project business logic into business logic layer, and you can keep JDBC logic into data access layer. Alright, so three-layer architecture is widely used solution. You basically divide your code base into three layers, and you provide responsibility for each layer. For example, presentation layer is responsible for presenting the data to the user interface, and business logic is basically responsible to hold all the business logic, and data access layer is responsible to hold all the database related logic. Alright guys, and in this video we'll focus on how to create a three-layer architecture in Spring MVC web application. Once we are familiar with the three-tier architecture, now let's take a look at how three-layered architecture and MVC pattern are related to each other. Okay, as we know that three-layer architecture and MVC pattern both are architecture design patterns, and we often use these two architecture design patterns in our Spring MVC web applications. Alright, so look at here, MVC pattern is located in a presentation layer, and MVC pattern is only concerned with organizing the logic in a user interface. Okay, that is in a presentation layer. We have view, model, and controller component in MVC pattern. So model is basically contains a data that needs to display to the user, and view is basically a visual representation of data to the user interface, for example HTML, and controller is basically handles user request and it will change the model data. These are the components in MVC design pattern. And three-tier architecture has a broader concern. It's about organizing the code in a whole application. Okay, for example, the project is basically divided into three different distinct layers, that is presentation layer, business layer, logic layer, and data access layer. Alright, and look at here the controller component of MVC pattern. So this component is basically a connection point between two layers, that is presentation layer and business logic layer. Alright, great. So once we are familiar with how the three-layer architecture and MVC pattern architectural design patterns are related to each other, now let us see how we can use these architecture patterns in Spring MVC web application. So look at here the diagram. So as we know that in Spring MVC we have controllers, services, and repositories, right? We use controller classes as a presentation layer, service classes as a business logic layer, and repository classes as a data access layer. Alright, in a controller classes we basically handle all the HTTP request, and we validate the request, and we create a model data, and we send a response back to the client. In service classes we basically keep all our business logic and calculations, data processing logic, business rules logic, etc. And repository layer basically has a responsibility to interact with the database and perform different core database operations. Alright, in typical Spring MVC application we create these layers. So basically we create a controller package, and we keep all the controller classes inside a controller package, and we create a service package, and we keep all our service classes inside a service package, and we create a repository package, and we keep all repository classes in a repository package. Alright, so this is how we use three-layer architecture in Spring MVC. Let me quickly demonstrate how to use three-layer architecture in Spring MVC web application with an example. Look at here, this is a Spring Boot Timeleap CRUD tutorial project. This project we created in previous video tutorial series. Alright, so this is basically employee management application which we have developed using Spring Boot Timeleap, and we performed CRUD operations on employee entity. And whatever the projects that I have created using Spring Boot and Spring MVC, I have followed three-layer architecture. For example, look at here, this is a controller package. Inside a controller package we have kept controllers like employee controller, and this is the repository layer, and inside a repository we have kept employee repository, and this is the service package. Inside service package we have added all the service classes, interfaces, etc. If you compare this packaging structure to the three-layer architecture, then controller package acts as a presentation layer, repository layer package acts as a data access layer, and service package acts as a business logic layer. Alright, so this is how we have used three-layer architecture in our Spring MVC web application. And again, presentation has a MVC pattern, right? So look at here, we have used a model. It contains the application data like employee data, and we have a Timeleap template. It acts as a view layer, and we have again a controller. It acts as a Spring MVC controller. Okay, so if you closely look at this project, we have used MVC design pattern as well as three-layer architecture design pattern. Okay, so this is how the three-layer architecture and MVC pattern are related to each other. Alright, so Spring MVC is based on model view control design pattern, so we always follow this model view design pattern. But whenever you are planning to develop an enterprise Spring MVC web application, then try to use three-layer architecture. So don't mix all the business logic, controller logic, database logic inside a single classes. Okay, so always try to divide your project into three layers with distinctive responsibilities. Alright, this is all about how to use three-layer architecture in Spring MVC web application. Alright guys, I hope you understood how to use three-layer architecture in our Spring MVC web application, as well as we also explored about how MVC pattern is related to three-layer architecture. Alright, I hope you found this video useful. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Whenever I will publish such videos, you will get notified. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.